council meeting. We will call to order at 5:01. John, will you do the opening prayer for us, please?
Oh, choka, mauna waka chongra. Egwana, egidode, egwano, egidode. Hinige, no chonijono. Monege, wawa, hanane, gudeno, hinige. Wangrege, wawa, hachine, hanane, gudeno, hinige. Oh, choka. Look out for all of our people. Nigite we wa nakshana, nigite we wa shanagu, choka. Bless us, bless all of us. Help us come together and have clear minds and open hearts. Let us stand tall together to do the people's work, choka. Oh, thank you.
Thank you, John. On the agenda, any added items?
Mr. Chairman, I have items to add.
Okay.
The first item I have to add under tribal council items is questions regarding the Special Investigative Committee regarding Eric Armel's ethical complaint. And the second item I would like to add is Mr. Chamberlain submitted a request to be on the agenda, and Chairman Brown was kind enough to put him on the March 2nd agenda, but that wasn't going to work for Brian, so I'm requesting we add him this evening. Thank you.
Okay. I have two admin for state wrestling Thursday and a Buffalo Council funding issue resolution. Any other additions?
I have one, 12 plans, consultant.
Okay. Any other additions?
What was that last one? Regarding the 12 clans consultant.
No other additions? Is there a motion to approve this amended agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion by John, seconded by Tori. Is there any objections to the motion? No objections? No objections. Motion passed. 7-0-0. Reading of the minutes, January 31st, 2020. Treasurer's report. The motion to approve the treasurer's report.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion by Roland, second by Eric. Is there any objections to the motion? No objections? No objections. Motion passed. 7-0-0. 2/3/2020 regular tribal council meeting. Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Louis. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by John. Is there any objections to the motion? No objections. Motion passed. 7-0-0. 2/10/20 monthly land meeting.
Make motion to approve.
Motion by Eric. Is there a second? Second. Second by Mel. Any objections to the motion? No objections? No objections, motion passed 7-0. Ratifications, Human Services Department donation for meal blessing dedication of the new Neola Walker Building.
This is in the amount of $1,568.09 for the meal. Motion to ratify, Chairman. Second.
Motion by John, second by Rollin. Is there any objections to the motion? No objections? Motion passed 7-0. New business. Resolution 20-95 FY 20 Consolidated Tribal Assistance Solicitation.
Looks like a 5-year grant in the amount of $399,226. The goal is, this project is to address gaps in the Winnebago criminal justice system by increasing the law enforcement and community outreach capacity of the Winnebago Police Department.
Thank you, John.
There's also a second part for Purpose Area 3 there as well. John read Purpose Area 1. And you'll see that that is, the Part 3 is a 5-year grant also. These are combined into a single application to the Department of Justice, but they come in 2 different parts. And you'll see that it will add a project manager outreach worker, full-time, licensed alcohol drug counselor, and a 3/4-time outreach worker. And the purpose of this is to expand outreach and recovery support services by implementation of culturally appropriate programs for clients and families who suffer from addictions related to methamphetamine, opiates, alcohol, and other substance abuse. And so collectively, together, you'll see both amounts in the resolution, totaling $1,299,062.
Motion to adopt, Chairman.
Motion to adopt resolution 20-95 by John. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Roland. Any objections to the motion? No objections? Motion passed 7-0. Adopt resolution 2096, legal aid of Nebraska to provide legal services and strengthen coordinated community response to stop violence against members and eligible members of the Winnebago tribe of Nebraska.
This particular grant, and we have guests in the audience today from the Legal Services of Nebraska. They will be looking at coordinating with our domestic violence program as they have in the past. This is actually an application, again, to the Department of Justice, and it's a coordination that the tribe would be the sponsor, as I understand it. Is that correct, Milo? And it also includes not only the Winnebago tribe, but they also provide services for the Omaha tribe, as well as the Santee and the Ponca tribe, and then extend services to, it's the Ogallala, right? As well, for the western part of the state of Nebraska, because legal aid provides attorney services across the state of Nebraska. And this will dedicate services around domestic violence to natives across the state. Is there anything else that you might want to add?
I'm Kirby Williams. I'm a citizen of Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma, and I'm the outreach coordinator for the Native American program with Legal Aid of Nebraska. For those of you who may not be familiar with legal aid or haven't heard of us, we are a nonprofit law firm. We provide free legal service to people who typically don't have access to an attorney. And within that, we have our Native American program, which serves enrolled or enrollment eligible Native Americans in the state of Nebraska with legal concerns that they may have. Within that, we also have our domestic violence program, which focuses on serving Native American survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, human trafficking, and stalking. So we help with things like protection orders or divorce in custody if you're trying to flee an abusive situation and different things like that. We also provide professional trainings and outreach, as well as educational, awareness opportunities. So for instance, last summer we had a protection order training to talk about how to file protection orders in the Winnebago Tribal Court and to have those upheld. We had a law enforcement training on how to respond to domestic violence situations more appropriately. And then we also have been up to the school and done awareness trainings on teen dating violence. I have with me here tonight our Executive Director, Milo Mumgard with Legal Aid of Nebraska, and our Native American Program Managing Attorney, Jonathan Seagrass. So if anybody has any questions about our services or anything with the grant, we really appreciate Joy for introducing this and would ask that you consider this. So,
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion by Louis, second by John. Is there any objections to the motion? No objections? No objections, motion passed 7-0-0.
What number is that?
20-96. We move on to old business. LaDonna Holstein requesting update. Is LaDonna here? LaDonna's not here. Okay. Tribal Council items. Number 1, VK travel approval for stack meetings.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I recently completed my first quarter stack meeting, the Department of Health and Human Services Secretary Tribal Advisory Committee, also known as STAC, and I am an at-large member to STAC, as well as the chair of STAC. And how I came to have that appointment was through a nomination process, and the HHS personnel within the Office of External and Intergovernmental Affairs selects those positions. And so that's how I came to be selected and serve on STAC. And so we just recently completed our STAC meeting in Washington, D.C., February 6th through 7th. And based on that meeting and other predetermined meetings, I asked Stacy Eckelfee to email me a list of my next responsibilities. And one of those next things being the STAC Tribal Consultation Policy Work Group, which is in the immediate March 3rd to the 4th. And so I'd like to just read these for the tribal membership's benefit, and then also give the council the opportunity to ask me questions about some of these things. Good morning, Tori. Thank you for your leadership at the last STAC meeting on February 6th through 7th here in Washington, D.C. We often hear great compliments on how you chair the meeting from HHS leadership. You keep us on track, keep people engaged, and always help with the next steps. For your awareness and participation, we wanted to make sure you had some dates on your calendar for the remaining STAC meetings in the HHS tribal consultations this year. And so the reason I asked Stacy for this, because I did communicate with her that every trip that I take with STAC and for STAC, I need approval from my tribal council to travel. And although that this is fully reimbursable travel, I still require a motion of the table. So it's really important for me to be able to communicate with the council on these trips and what each of those are. The first trip, STAC Tribal Consultation Policy Work Group meeting in DC, March 3rd through the 4th, 2020. The next meeting of the work group will continue the discussion of potentially revising the Department of Health and Human Services Tribal Consultation Policy. It is critical that this policy honors the government-to-government relationship between tribes and the federal government and is reflective of the needs and priorities of both sides. This meeting will continue the ongoing discussion about the policy and outline a path towards achieving a policy that is mutually supported by both tribes and the federal government. Your leadership and presence as chair of the STAC will ensure that the discussion is meaningful on task. So what's underway right now is that HHS requested comments from the tribes on updating the HHS budget consultation. And the reason why this consultation policy is so important is because in the government-to-government relationship that the tribal governments have with the federal government, they also have the right to consultation when any law or policy would impact the livelihoods of the tribe or Indian country. And so often tribes invoke consultation. And what's really important about this policy is that all the agencies that fall within HHS mirror their consultation policy on HHS's kind of parent policy, if you will. And those include IHS, CDC, HRSA, SAMHSA, all the things that are relevant to some of the programming we have in our community. And one of the things that is happening and that is of great concern is there's discussion to kind of modify some of that language. And due to an ongoing litigation with one tribe, there's suggestion to modify some of that language. And that's really alarming that some of those things would be underway. And so this work group has received those comments and are working to create some guiding principles on what the path forward is to modify that policy, or perhaps now is not the right time during this administration when there's really threatening things that could undermine all the ground we stand on, not just our tribe. So that work is underway. The STAC at CDC in Atlanta, Georgia, March 10th through 11th. The STAC will be traveling and meeting with the CDC at their Atlanta campus on March 10th through 11th. The purpose of the trip is to provide the STAC with a thorough presentation of all the different programs and initiatives that CDC works on that impact Indian country. During the trip, the STAC will have the opportunity to engage with senior CDC officials on tribal public health priorities. Your leadership as the chair will help this be a productive meeting with some current rocky relationships. And so the issue that STAC has with the CDC is that for some time now, the CDC is the only agency that has not sent leadership to the STAC meeting. And the expectation and the exchange that happens at the STAC is that it's the top official from each of the agencies. Like when we meet with IHS, we meet with Principal Director Wiaki. When we meet with well, that's just the one on top of my head. And so the CDC for some time has been, in some of the leadership's opinion, disrespecting the tribes by not showing up. And so there's a variety of other things that kind of encompass that rocky relationship. So we're going to the CDC. The annual HHS Tribal Budget Consultation in DC, April 7th through the 8th. The annual consultation provides for a forum for tribes to collectively share their views and priorities with senior HHS leaders on national health and human services funding priorities and make recommendations for the department's FY 2022 budget request. As chair of the STAC, we appreciate it if you could once again serve as our moderator for this critical consultation. So at this time is when the tribal leaders, and this is not open to just STAC, I just facilitate this. Any tribal leader from any tribe can RSVP to this event, and they come with their priorities, they work with their technical advisors, and it's a real coordinated effort when we get in front of the leadership on what our asks are for Indian country. The next one is STAC at Traverse City, Michigan, May 12th through the 13th. The annual STAC in Indian Country meeting is important because it provides opportunities for senior HHS leadership to visit tribal communities and see firsthand tribal needs and innovations. This experience helps strengthen the understanding from the department about tribal communities and the positive impacts that HHS policies and initiatives can have. Your leadership as chair of the STAC will ensure that the meeting is productive and meaningful. So the last Indian Country meeting was in Fairbanks, Alaska, and we had the opportunity to visit a couple Alaska Native villages. And out of that trip, the HHS Deputy Secretary Hargan came down and had made recommendations for CHAP expansion. And what CHAP expansion is, it's the Community Health Aid Program. And think of it kind of like a lower level provider, but it's more skilled than a CHR. And so for remote communities in Alaska, they've identified programming that expands access to healthcare, and models such as CHAP expansion is something that's still being discussed. And so it's, but then in the lower 48, we have CHRs. And so there's still a discussion on, the lower 48 are saying, leave our CHRs alone. But then solutions are being put forward for CHAP expansion. And so those discussions are still underway. But that's just an example of the solutions that come out of these people who sit in Washington, D.C. and make decisions for us. When they go right out to Indian country, they can say, okay, now I understand. So they, and STAC is the only committee that has that meeting in Indian country, and it's been really beneficial, and real solutions have come out of that. STAC in DC, September 9th through 10th, 2020. The STAC meeting in December is an important meeting because it will be the last meeting of the STAC for 2020 and the last meeting before the election in November. It will provide a great opportunity to recap the accomplishments from the past 4 years of the STAC and start the planning process for the next 4 years. Your leadership as the chair of the STAC will help ensure that the meeting is productive and meaningful. Let us know if you have any questions or would like more information. We do have potential meetings that we will request your presence, but we'll provide more details when the time comes. Thank you again for all you do. So the purpose of me submitting this to the Tribal Council was so that I could show you some of my upcoming commitments, and so that the membership could also gain a perspective on why we go to Washington, D.C., and why we need to engage at the highest level of leadership with some of these agencies, because not only are we able to put our priorities forward, but also have that government-to-government conversation. And so in the immediate, I'm looking for approvals for just the March meetings so that finance can move forward with these travel arrangements, and that so I can make that commitment to the STAC.
Is there a motion to approve STAC meetings travel for Toy for March 3rd, 4th, March 10th, and 11th, 2020?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
Second.
A motion by Mel and a second by Louis. Is there any objections to the motion? No objections? No objections. Motion passed, 7-0-0. Wait,
I had a discussion.
discussion.
Slow up, Chair. We have a investigation in the process.
You might.
Currently, we have a investigation in process. And everything that goes on in this is kind of a contingent on how that's gonna roll out. So I can't agree to approve, to vote for this at this time. So I can't support this.
Okay, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? Raise your right hand. Three? No? Three no? Any abstentions? No abstentions? Abstain?
No, I vote yes. I just, sorry, I wasn't listening. I vote yes.
You're gonna vote yes? 430. Motion passed. NIHB quarterly meeting, February 25th, 6th, and 7th.
Thank you, Council, for that motion. At one of our last meetings, the Tribal Council was very generous to make a pledge to donate to the Tribal Public Health Summit that is happening in Omaha. Excuse me, wait, let me back up. Okay, let me back up. Sorry about that. I'm getting ahead of myself. In your packet, you have my next quarter National Indian Health Board meeting is scheduled for February 25th to 27th in Washington, D.C. In your packet, Council, you have the agenda for that meeting. And I'm looking for an approval to attend this board meeting where I also am the chair of this meeting. And by looking at the agenda, Council, you can see the leadership and the topics that we covered during this meeting. And it wouldn't, I don't really want to read that to the membership, but I'm willing to share that agenda if anyone wants to look at it. And I also just want to, I guess, note that when we go to Washington, D.C., we're engaging with top leadership from some of these agencies. We're doing advocacy on the Hill and advocacy for funding and favorable policies for Indian country is a necessary exercise of our leadership. And I'm just really thankful that I've been able to contribute to that in what we're trying to accomplish here. And it's also great visibility for the Winnebago tribe to continue to be visible in some of these offices so that we can build that rapport with not only with the agencies but with our congressional folks. And so I also want to thank John for his leadership recently with the Intertribal Buffalo Council, because all those actions are meaningful and impactful when they come to decision making. And when you're there meeting with them in their office and then following up with whatever next steps take place, that's what affects change. And we have to be very proactive in those actions, especially when there are continuous threats to Indian country in this administration and many others. And we consistently say that the work of the tribes, we work in a bipartisan fashion, and we have friends on both sides of the aisle when it comes to policy. And when we need a policy funded, or when we need a program funded, such as the Special Diabetes Program for Indians, we're asking people from both sides of that aisle for their support. So that's just an example of, I guess, why I think that it's so important. And so that trip, which is fully reimbursable by the National Indian Health Board, is scheduled for February 25th through the 27th.
Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mel, second by Louis. Any objections to the motion?
Object.
Call for the vote. All in favor, raise your right hand. 4 yes. No. 3 no, 0 abstentions. Motion passed 430. Item 3, 3K National Tribal Public Health Summit.
Thank you. At one of the last tribal council meetings, the tribal council was very generous to make a donation to the National Indian Health Board National Tribal Public Health Summit. And out of that donation comes a complimentary summit registration. And so Teresa reached out to me and asked me, what we would do with that. And I said that it would be appropriate that would be offered to somebody from the tribal council as a first. And if the tribal council member, one of our council members or officers elected to use that, it would require a motion for travel. And so that's why this is on here, because we get a complimentary summit registration. And I would really encourage somebody to use it so that you could, it's in Omaha. It's as close as any of these meetings have gotten to our reservation, and that that maybe people could see firsthand some of the work that the tribes engaged in through NIHB. And then further, to add on to that, there's opportunity with this conference being hosted in Omaha. On Monday, one of the top leadership from the CDC is scheduled to visit our community, and there are presentations and things that are being put in place to highlight and share with our special guest. And so it's really a great thing to have a top official. And I had mentioned, remember we had a little, we're working on that relationship. And so for them and their willingness to visit us here in Winnebago, it's like another opportunity for them to see Indian country, see some of our programming, and also have discussions on how we can continue to work together with that agency. So that's something that's kind of sidebar from that conference, but on Monday they're coming to visit us, and then Tuesday's pre-conference day. Wednesday there'll be a culture night that we're working on, and so because it's being hosted in our area, and in the state of Nebraska, really looking for the full kind of engagement of the tribes. But the item is to, I guess, offer that registration up to an interested council member and make a motion for their travel to Omaha.
What was the date on it? I didn't see the flyer in here.
That would be, I got the dates right here. The dates of that would be March 17th through the 19th. And it would be up to that person on how long they wanted to be there, but just that's when it is.
Does anybody on the council wish to take this opportunity?
It seems like a great opportunity, and I wouldn't just limit it to one council member. I'd like to make a motion that any interested council member, since it's so close, I would make that motion, Chairman, to approve travel and registration for any interested council members that want to attend.
Okay, there's a motion for John to approve travel for all.
Second.
Motion by John, second by Tori. Is there any objections to the motion? No objections? No objections. Motion passed 7-0-0.
Thank you, Council.
Item 4, legal counsel for tribal council.
This is also my item. As tribal council may know, and for the membership's information, case number CV 20-004 was filed in tribal court by Thelma Whitewater and Eric Armel as the plaintiffs versus Winnebago Tribal Council members Kenneth Mallory, Victoria Kitchion, Melton Frenchman, Louis Houghton, and Brian Chamberlain as the defendants. And the plaintiffs require the aid of this court to issue a judgment stating that the defendants illegally included 8 names on the ballot when the aforementioned tribal code clearly states 6 names and requests an expedited hearing. We require the tribal court to find that tribal council may not add 2 additional names on the ballot, Kenneth Mallory and Tony Wood. And so the plaintiffs have petitioned to the Winnebago Tribal Court and are requesting a declaratory judgment to find the defendants at some fault. And so the tribal council members that are named are acted and were in the role of tribal council, and according to the procurement policy, I'll back up. And so the general counsel, Big Fire, has recused themselves for this case because there's a conflict, because now Eric and Thelma are on the tribal council, so they can't represent the tribal council against the tribal council. And for that reason, Heidman Law Firm also has a conflict of interest and cannot represent a tribal council versus a tribal council because they have a standing contract with the tribe. And so Mr. Chairman has an email from Nikki Doshino on the reasons why she had to recuse Big Fire. And Heidman Law Firm has the same conflict. And so where am I at? On February 13th, there was on February 13th, all the parties named appeared in tribal court, and an evidentiary hearing was set up. And once that evidentiary hearing takes place, a declaratory judgment can be granted. And since this was done under the authority of a tribal council, it's appropriate that the tribal council have legal representation. And since it can't be Heidman and it can't be Big Fire, the burden is on these named defendants to secure legal counsel to respond to this judgment. And based on the procurement policy that I'll pass out right now, well, I put the email, I'll just give one to you. Could you please pass these on, Tanya? So I put on the cover page, I put the email from the most updated approved procurement policy, and that policy was updated on June 28th, 2019. And so if you want to look at the whole policy, you can reference your email for that whole document. But on page 9 of that document, under Part F, non-competitive proposals, conditions for use, procurement shall be conducted competitively to the maximum extent possible. Procurement by non-competitive proposals may be used only when the award of a contract is not feasible using check request, micro small purchase, sealed bids, or competitive proposals, and one of the following applies. A, an emergency exists that seriously threatens the public health, welfare, or safety, or endangers property, or would otherwise cause serious injury to the tribe, as may arise by reason of flood, earthquake, epidemic, riot, equipment failure, litigation, or similar event. In such cases, there must be an immediate and serious need for supplies, services, or construction, such as that the need cannot be met through any procurement methods. And the emergency procurement shall be limited to those supplies, services, or construction necessary to meet the emergency. So, with that, it's appropriate that with that with that evidentiary hearing set for April 10th at 9 a.m., and no later than March 27, 2020, a list of witnesses as well as physical evidence be submitted to the tribal court. It's of urgency that legal counsel be secured to respond to this complaint. And through this procurement policy, the exemption is litigation. And so we find ourselves in litigation, and for that reason, I've brought this to the attention of the council and am seeking, and I have a couple names. I've made one phone call, and I wasn't able to reach that person, but it's also not appropriate for me to send anything out to anyone until this table has been a part of that conversation. So I guess I would like to make a motion that the Winnebago Tribal Council procure legal counsel to respond to, respond to CV, I'm losing my papers here. Respond to CV 20-004.
What is that?
That's the complaint in tribal court.
Oh,
That's the case number.
The case number?
And so it's a very specific case matter, and it's for a very specific engagement, and for that and only that.
That's your motion.
Yes.
You got that?
Yep.
Motion by Tori, second by Mel. Is there any objections to the motion?
Discussion.
Discussion. John?
I guess I don't know a lot on this. So just to be clear, this legal counsel that we want to procure is going to defend which side, and what are we looking as for a outcome?
Well, the tribal council members are the defendants, and I when this complaint was originally brought, Thelma Whitewater and Eric Armel were not on the tribal council. So now that they are on the tribal council, we have a conflict with standing general counsel and Heidemann, who does our AQUA cases. And so, because this was done in our capacity as tribal council, the tribe has to defend us. And now we have an amended complaint, but these two initiated this complaint as individual tribal members. And their complaint is against the actions of the tribal government and the people named.
Thelma?
Okay, what she's reading was against individuals. So since it's individuals, it does not require counsel from the table to represent them.
It says, Thelma Whitewater and Eric Armel plaintiffs versus Winnebago Tribal Council members, Kenneth Mallory, Victoria Kitcheon, Melton Frenchman, Louis LaRose, and Brian Chamberlain defendants. This action could not have been facilitated as individual tribal members. This action was facilitated as an action of the table.
But it wasn't against the whole council, but it was as individuals who sat on the council.
That's not what the complaint says.
Yes, it is. Otherwise, the other ones would have been listed on there also as a full council.
That's your
And it wasn't-
understanding, but the understanding of the court is this is against Winnebago Tribal Council members, and that's the way it's written. That's the case number CV 20-004, if any tribal members want to go get a copy of this. And there's an amended complaint for declaratory judgment, October 8th, 2019 election. So it's not a matter of can we, it's a necessary exercise because this is a case that's been brought against the tribal government. And you can try to sparse it out, but this is against the tribal government.
Come to the podium.
I've been on a lot of boards before, and anytime you're acting in that capacity, you're not separate from your position on that board or that council. So there's no way that you can name specific tribal council members if the ones that acted in your favor didn't participate in that, or they said no. But when you bring legal action, that's what happens. And the other question that I had was that essentially the tribal council is the supervisor of the tribal court. So that's a conflict of interest because you guys are are his boss. So you'd have to have a separate judge to act on this, one that's impartial and doesn't have that threat of losing their job or whatever because they don't act in the manner that you want. So that, and the other question that I had is that if in fact that you would win your case, then my understanding of reading through the Constitution and bylaws is that would essentially invalidate the entire election, which would remove Thelma and Eric. And we'd have to have a new election. So I'm just wondering if that's something that you're seriously proposing to do, because the other part of that is that all the business that's been performed at this table, if that is in fact found in the favor of Eric and Thelma, would invalidate all the business you guys have done to date. So those are the concerns that I have as a tribal member. And I know, Thelma, from your body language, you didn't like what I said, but
No, I
I,
got a response for you. That's why I'm looking at him. I got a response, Coley.
Okay.
Okay, the response is that, we would still be on because we got voted.
No, you
highest.
wouldn't.
No, that wouldn't.
no,
that wouldn't
no, you
happen.
wouldn't. You'd have to have a new election.
those
Read the
names had no
Constitution and the
business on
bylaws.
Point of order.
Read the Constitution and the bylaws. I
No, those
appreciate
names
what your
were put
response
on.
is, but you said when you got elected and you sat in that seat that you would uphold the
Hey, I
Constitution.
got the floor, right?
I just want to
Yep.
remind you,
Okay. Just be civil.
I'm not acting incivilly. I'm just responding to her as she's saying what
Well,
she's
I got
saying.
the floor.
Okay.
You had yours, now it's mine.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so us being on there, and even as Kenny said before that when I mentioned what was going on, he said, well, even if our names are on there, you guys, and it's the highest vote, so it didn't matter if those two names were added on there or not. That's what Kenny said. So that's the same goes for now. We got the highest vote, that's why we're in there. And that had nothing to do with having to redo the whole election. That's
Well, uphold the Constitution then and do it the way it's supposed to be done. That's all I'm asking
Well, that should have been done
you.
in the first place. Otherwise, we
I'm
wouldn't
just
have been
saying
to
if
this
you-
point, Daphne.
I'm
Mr.
just saying,
Okay.
if you would happen to win your case, that invalidates the election. That's all I'm saying, and you can read it for yourself. I'm not going to argue with you. We have a difference of opinion, and that's all.
Mr. Chairman, some of the things that are being discussed right now will be discussed in CV 20-004 and why it finds itself in tribal court. And that's why I wanted to bring it to everyone's attention so that this can be done equitably and in line with the procurement policy and in line with when a case gets brought against the Winnebago tribal government.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Thanks. There's a motion by Tori, second by Mel. Any objections to the motion? Call for the comment. One more comment by John.
It would be helpful for me if the procurement would be on a legal opinion on how we should move forward as far as the core. And of course, it's something that we have to do. Like you said, these are council members, so we're acting, and there should be some kind of looking out for each other legally. I mean, you know what I mean? We should back each other up. I mean, we're here making actions. I understand that. So I would be comfortable with moving forward if we had a legal opinion on how we should move forward.
Thank you, John, and I think that's an excellent point. And one of the concerns I have with that is the first court appearance happened on February 13th, and a deadline has been set for March 27th, and that is, well, I guess we've got a little time, but then it brings the same question, who's providing that opinion? Because Big Fire has recused themselves, Heidman has recused themselves, and so those are the two attorneys that the tribal government has active contracts with, and so it would still require another opinion outside of those two. But I mean, I think, you know, that would be helpful for everyone to understand. I just don't know how much time we have before that.
Is it an option to make action on the table to request the extension because we're trying to find that?
Thank you for that question. I also asked for a continuance for this court date. I requested a continuance for two things, and I was in Washington, D.C. testifying and attending the National Council or Congress of American Indians meetings, and the judge denied my request for a continuance. And so I had to end my trip early and come back to appear in tribal court. So the judge has not been, the judge did not grant my continuance because I thought we needed more time to discuss this as a table as well. Additionally, Big Fire sent an email to Chairman Brown when they recused themselves. So it's not a new issue, you know, just that maybe hasn't been shared far and wide.
We could possibly request that both from Big Fire and Heidemann, you know, they don't have to list no names, but their thoughts and opinion on it.
It's
If it
against their
was-
ethics to have an opinion on this, and that's why they can't help me. You know,
Okay?
and I shouldn't say me, but I placed a phone call and to Heidemann, and Heidemann said I have the same conflict as Big Fire. And so I reached out to Chairman Brown, and I told him that this was what I needed to follow up on, and he said, keep me posted. And so that was the update, is that Heidemann cannot represent the council for the same conflicts. One thing is we could request to go to the Winnebago Tribal Supreme Court. That, you know, but again, this is not something that is out of order. This is the way it works.
We had already asked for the Supreme Court, and we didn't get it.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor by Tori and a second by Mel. Discussion? More discussion? Okay.
I think that John brought up some valid points. And to take the time to try to glean this out so that we could work this, so that it's clear for everybody on how we should proceed. It's worth the time to take to do it for everybody involved at this table. So I really feel quite strongly that we need to really slow this down and take a look at this and find that, whoever that's going to be, for that opinion, so that we can clearly look at how we should proceed. Now, who is that? I don't know.
Tori?
Mr. Chairman, I mentioned earlier that you received an email from Nikki of Big Fire on why they needed to recuse themselves and the steps that needed to be taken to procure counsel. And so it's unfortunate that I had to, I guess, find that out on my own. But, you know, Mr. Chairman, you've had this information.
Okay.
So that guidance has already been provided, and not the who or not the what, but just how it works. And maybe it would be helpful if Mr. Chairman shared that with the entire council.
So they recused themselves, but they went ahead and did an opinion on how it should be done.
I don't know. I didn't
Something
receive
like
the
that,
email.
right? That's what
You
you're
received
saying.
the
I have to
email.
read it again. We can pull that up tomorrow morning as soon as possible and forward it to you guys. With this motion here, any more discussion?
I have one more point of discussion. You know, if we're going to do things and be transparent, you know, like, we should all know this information, and we shouldn't have to, like, find things out on our own. You know, we're a member of this I'm a member of this council. You're our chairman, and so that level of transparency has to come from the very top, because otherwise we'd all have that email and we'd all be on the same page.
Any more discussion on this motion? Is there any objections to the motion? No objections? Call for the vote. All in favor, raise your right hand. 3 yes? No? 3 abstentions.
I'm gonna abstain from lack of information. I have basically nothing that I know about this.
3-3-1. I will vote no on this motion, break the tie. On to item 5. TW travel approval. Thank you, meal and surviving terminal diseases.
Mr. Chairman, I had one more question that was in regarding legal counsel for tribal council. That was only part A. Oh, I didn't letter them, but the other concern I have is that I don't have the date of the meeting, but there was concern and discussion from some of our tribal council to secure a different law firm, and for whatever reason, some of our council have not been supportive or wanting Big Fire Law and Policy to represent the Winnebago tribe for general counsel. And so at that meeting and that motion, there was a discussion and a motion for an RFP that would be sent out to however that process was going to go, and that Big Fire would also have the opportunity to participate in that request for proposal. And I also recently learned that RFP has been drafted and has been sent out, and the council in its entirety did not participate in that process. They didn't get to review that RFP. Who did it get sent to, and who responded? And so this is another example of the lack of transparency that's happening at this table, and I think it really has an impact on our stability, and we should know what each other is doing, especially when it impacts the entire tribal council and the tribe. And when undermining things like this happen, I have to ask the question, who's doing it? And who sent out the RFP? And who's taking actions and acting as an individual when they don't have that capacity or authority?
My knowledge, the RFP and with the procurement policy, we reached out to several, and it states it in that policy. Sorry, I don't have it. It's open to the public. And Lance was down here last week, and he said he was going to submit one. And I can't say that I've seen it yet. I wasn't in office today.
So,
Got it? Okay, we have it.
So that's wonderful, but as a sitting council member, and a motion was made to draft an RFP, why haven't all of us seen it? Why haven't we all been able to participate in that process? And I guess just as a courtesy, I don't like to be blindsided and learn that there's an RFP out there that I haven't seen, but was an action of the table. And it goes back to the stability of our tribe, the transparency, and the working together. And so when people are sending things or participating amongst themselves, that's not appropriate, and that doesn't, for the people that voted for me, that doesn't include them as the constituents of this tribe. And so it's really important that we engage in open forum or through a real transparent, equitable process, and that has not been happening consistently, and this is just another example.
Okay, I don't have the minutes. Where was you when that motion was made? Was you here or was you absent?
I was here, and John and I were both here, and I specifically remember that we wanted, it was a really good discussion. We said, well, I think, you know, Big Fire can be included. You know, it's not saying they're not included. Everybody should have opportunity to respond. And when you have a request for proposal, and that's a question, in what nature was it drafted? Was it sent to specific firms? Was it put out in open forum and advertised in a place that any firm would have the opportunity to respond to? And that it wasn't done in a way that carved out whoever you, not you, Chairman, but whoever is initiating these actions wanted responses from. And so that's kind of what I'm saying, you know, and we don't know who it's going to be. You know, we probably got some very wonderful responses to that proposal, but it's in the manner that this took place that is of question and concern to me.
John?
I was one of the ones that supported this RFP, and it was because of your comments, Chairman, on saying that this wasn't done in the beginning. So I wanted to go back and do it right and let our best law firm that could fulfill our needs, that's who we would choose. And we wouldn't be exclusive. You know, we would put it out there for any interested law firm to submit a proposal. And I, for one, thought this was going to be a lengthy process. I mean, 3 to 6 months. I was thinking, I mean, really, maybe have somebody come in here and identify our needs and see what kind of legal we need, and identify those firms that can provide that to us. That's what I was thinking with this proposal. I too did not know that it was going to move this fast. But I just wanted to provide my thoughts. Thank you.
It wasn't mailed out. It wasn't put in no papers. It was, and according to the procurement policy, some tribal council members reached out to a few. I don't have the list.
Can you tell me which tribal council members
I
reached
can't.
out?
No, I can't.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
Well,
We'd have to get that on the.
Louis, did you reach out? Eric, did you reach out?
We looked at for a few.
Who's
Just
who's
random.
we?
Just random.
Who's we?
So you're asking about the process. And
I'm
it wasn't- it
asking
wasn't anyone in
who reached
specific.
out. So who was it then? If it's
Everybody that voted here. That's who we
I
are.
voted and I didn't reach out.
So
So did you reach out?
I found a few. I found a few.
Okay, can you tell me which ones you found?
I can't, I don't have the list with me
Okay,
right now.
Roland, did you reach out?
Mhm.
Thank you. Coley, did you reach out?
Nope.
Thank you. John, did you reach out?
No.
Thelma, did you reach out?
No, I didn't, but I got somebody emailed me.
So they just randomly emailed you?
Yeah. They
Okay,
said they heard about it, so
okay.
there's in.
Well, thank you. That's really helpful for me to know who's reaching out on all of our behalfs, and it's just it's just not right. It's not in line with the motion that was made, and individual council members or officers do not have the authority to act on this table's behalf outside of motions made at this table. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to see all those proposals immediately at the soonest convenience. And also the RFP, and maybe we need to rein this in because this is just not a productive way to procure.
No, it's not.
Yeah, I agree, Chairman. I think we should really take our time because the right law firm with the right strengths paired with our needs is going to be really beneficial than just going out there and doing it, too fast, because this is really important.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
From what I understand, I thought we was gonna put it in the paper, in the wind or whatever.
It really doesn't. It doesn't really say how to in the policy.
Thank you, Chairman, for the time.
Is that it?
Yes.
We could possibly put that RFP on the next agenda and discuss. Move on to item 5. Thank You Meal and Surviving Terminal Diseases, February 22nd, Black River Falls Community Building. Travel for Thelma?
It was questions about the general counsel article.
Has proven travel for any tribal council members? Is there a motion to approve? Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion for any tribal council members to attend the thank you meal on surviving terminal diseases, February 22nd, 2020 at Black River Falls Community Building.
Motion by Thelma, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Eric. Is there any objections to the motion? Call for the vote. All in favor, raise your right hand. 2 yes. No. 4 no. 0 abstentions. Motion failed, 2-4-0. Next item on the agenda is the Nebraska Intertribal Coalition meeting. Says approved travel, but it's at Blackbird Bend Casino, February 21st. I don't. I don't know. I don't have. Somebody want to map that? Was that under 50 miles or what is that? In
No mileage for that under 50. I think that's what she.
that what it is? In I'm pretty sure. So we'll just note that the Nebraska Intertribal Coalition meeting is February 21st at 10 a.m. hosted by the Omaha Tribe of Nebraska Blackbird Bend Casino. Okay, added items.
Right?
What?
Yeah.
No, it's under the mileage. Questions for the special investigation?
Yeah. Thank you, Chairman. I added this item. The last tribal council meeting we had, as tribal council knows and as the membership may know, there was a complaint submitted by Eric Armel against myself, and I've had an opportunity to read that in the meantime, and at that meeting there was a motion to appoint a special investigative committee. And per the procedures for tribal council disciplinary process, the step number two says, unless the complaint is frivolous, the tribal council shall appoint an investigative committee. The investigative committee shall meet with the parties involved and interview those parties accused of improper conduct. The investigative committee shall conduct such investigation as is reasonably appropriate to determine the facts surrounding the complaint. The Attorney General may provide legal counsel to the committee. And so, in reviewing that complaint, one of the first things that I became aware of was that the special investigative committee HR leads that are working on this were directed to work with Heidman Law Firm. And in fact, the standing attorney general is Sheila Corbine of Big Fire. And so I have great concern that there are being directives made that aren't in line with our policy and the steps that take place when a complaint is initiated. And so I'm wondering who directed the committee to work with Heidemann.
There was no direction. We got an opinion from Heidemann on the process.
Okay. Okay, so how are we soliciting opinions outside of this table against other council members? And the policy says the Attorney General, and in all past complaints that have come to this table, they've worked with General Counsel. And so I just don't understand the exception and why directives are being made outside of this process. And so this isn't my process, this is a standing document, and I just hope that the investigation and the integrity of it can follow our document. And it's another thing that I'm not asking for my benefit, I'm asking that this be done fairly and in line with our policy, Chairman. And
Okay.
then the second point that I wanted to make, in reviewing this policy, it says, we have a memo here from Karahara Law, and it says, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the opportunity to serve the important legal needs of the Winnebago Tribe of Nebraska related to the issue of compliance with the mandatory drug and alcohol testing of tribal council members. You asked me to provide a summary of existing tribal law regarding the mandatory drug and alcohol testing of tribal council members. Furthermore, you asked me to address compliance with the law commonly known as HIPAA, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. Finally, you asked me to explain the procedures set out in tribal law when a tribal council member refuses to comply with the required testing. And so my concern for this is going back to the procurement policy and the only exemptions when legal counsel is engaged and the steps to do that. When did this table authorize Karahara to provide an opinion of our mandatory drug and alcohol testing policy? And so I have these questions.
What was the date on it?
The date of the memo is November 4th, 2019. And so before this memo, and before this complaint came from Eric Armel, you commissioned or somebody solicited the services of Karahara Law. And that is not right. And I want to know which motion authorized that action.
James Kawahara is technically legally in our books
How so?
to as a
How so, Mr. Chairman?
I don't know that process at tribal court where they're registered to handle business for us.
That is,
This is November 4th, 2019. We have to discuss this. I don't have those documents are leading up to.
I have it in front of me, and everybody received a part of the same complaint that I received. I just had time to review it, and this is our next scheduled meeting since I was provided this complaint. And so I think it's fair and that an open session amongst the people that I be able to ask these questions, because I want to ensure that the integrity of this process is followed, and to learn that our chairman has solicited an opinion from Karahara Law is inappropriate. And in fact, I think its own ethical complaint. But I have these questions because a complaint has been initiated against me, and this table said it was not frivolous. And so step number 1 took place. Step number 2 is where we are at in this process. And if myself and Councilman Frenchman are to be treated fairly and in line with this policy, how is this Karahara Law even providing opinions that led up to a complaint, and so I feel like you're responsible for this, Mr. Chairman.
Responsible for what?
For engaging with Karahara so that you could secure a legal opinion, and so then that that was never provided to me. And if there was a legal opinion solicited on behalf of a tribal council policy, I would have liked to receive that opinion. And then for that action to next be result in a complaint from Mr. Armel based on this legal opinion, I have an issue with that.
Okay. Again, it was dated November 4th, 2019. Last year when the drug policy, we was addressing it last year.
So why wasn't this memo shared with us on November 4th, 2019?
It wasn't forwarded?
No,
You have it in your possession?
I got it with my complaint. I've never seen this, and I've never been told that Karahara is doing review of our mandatory drug and alcohol testing resolution 18-138. And so I question the validity of that complaint now. I have great concern.
Okay. Eric?
We're here with this discussion this evening because there was a drug policy put in place. There was 2 members that chose not to follow that drug policy. And so I set forth 2 complaints, ethical complaints, on those 2 members not following our drug policy. So that's how we're here.
Thank you for that, Eric, and I appreciate you responding to that, because your complaint is based on Karahara's opinion. Well, why is it in the complaint then? Why is it in my packet then? I mean, you included it in the packet, sir. I didn't generate the packet. You did.
Drug test results that came back. Oh, there's 1, 2. Yeah, all except for your 2s. They didn't come in because he didn't take them. The hair follicle test, we have to emphasize the hair follicle testing. That's what the policy says.
Thank you, Eric. Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
You are correct. I did not take the hair follicle test. I took a observed urine analysis test at Tri-State that I passed, and that's also in the record. And I also want to, for the membership's concern and for the table's concern, I learned that our drug testing results were sent to Omaha Nation. And that's concerning to me because Tri-State Nursing has violated this table's HIPAA. And for the Omaha Nation to be in receipt of our test results is an issue for me. And this is just getting worse, and I think it's because the intent and the way that this has gone, even that the policy was drafted, and so now I have a concern with the fact that we're even engaged with Tri-State when this table mandated each program to prohibit them from working with Tri-State because they publicly shamed the Winnebago tribe on social media when a disgruntled employee contract was not renewed at Winnevegas. And at that time, this tribal government decided that we would no longer do business with Tri-State Nursing. And so Tri-State Nursing may have perhaps not a good rapport with the tribe because we paid them a tremendous amount of money for the services that they formerly provided for the tribe. So then we circle back and we ask them to do this for our tribal council, and they're sending our results to our neighboring tribe. That is a huge concern for me.
Okay. Anything else?
Well, I want to know what we're going to do. What are we going to do about Tri-State Nursing compromising our individual HIPAA by sending it to another tribe?
You get a legal opinion on that?
I don't know. It's up for discussion. I just put it on the table because as I'm going through this process, I'm learning these things that have great concern on the integrity of not only steps moving forward and how we prevent that from happening again. And if they're sending it to the Omaha tribe, who else have they sent it to?
Yeah, I will confirm it was accidentally sent to the Omaha tribe of Nebraska and was forwarded back to us by Tri-State. Anything else?
What will our next steps be, Mr. Chairman?
Four,
To terminate our agreement with Tri-State.
take a motion, I
I'd
guess.
like to make a motion to terminate all business with Tri-State Nursing on behalf of the Winnebago Tribe of Nebraska.
Second. There's a motion by Tory, second by Louis, to terminate business with Tri-State Nursing. Discussion? Any objections to the motion? Call for the vote. All in favor, raise your right hand. Four? No? Three? Motion passed, 4-3-0.
And Chairman, somebody told me one time, they said, don't ever go into a meeting cold, John. But it seems like that's all I come into the meeting is cold. I want to really encourage each one of these council members to start sharing everything. There's nothing we should be hiding from each other. Share all this information with each other. I didn't know anything of any of this stuff. I was completely unaware of it, all of this stuff, and it's saddening to me.
Mm-hmm. I apologize. I will try and read the emails better and forward them if they're not forwarded to you, to the rest of the tribal council.
Mr. Chairman, I would also like to make a motion to refer this issue regarding Tri-State to our general counsel for legal action against Tri-State.
Second.
Discussion.
Discussion.
So, we cannot control what other entities are going to do, or if they made it a mistake, an honest mistake. It's beyond our control. I do believe that we should be cautious moving forward in regards to this issue. And be mindful that we have an ethical complaint in play against two individuals on this council because of their refusal to submit to a hair follicle test. And now they're here trying to get out of a contract with these very people that did the test on all the TC from councils before this sitting council. Now, those decisions are their decisions alone. That's beyond anybody sitting at this table on the opposing side, their control. So I want you to be mindful of that. That's all I got to say.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Tri-State Nursing has a standard of that they must uphold when they enter into a contract. And by sharing our test results, that's a violation of their HIPAA and them as a facility. And regardless of how it happened or how many people they sent it to, that you're right, that is out of our control, and we don't know that. But that's not the issue. The issue is that it happened. And why should each of your results go to anyone else but the intended recipient?
I don't have a problem with it.
And I do, because it's against the law, sir. And for that matter, I think that it would be absurd that the Winnebago tribal government and Winnebago tribe of Nebraska would be okay with that. And the issue of the ethical complaint, that's a separate issue. This is an issue of, and exactly what I've been talking about is the chain of command and the process that this is being shared. Furthermore, Mr. Chairman put out an email with everyone's results in an email and a memo. And so I'd like the IT forensics on who printed that email, who forwarded that email, because this is also entailing in the HIPAA. But anyway, that's a whole separate issue. But right now, the motion is to refer this issue to General Counsel for legal action against Tri-State. And Mr. Chairman confirmed this evening that that did occur.
Okay. Is there any objections to the motion?
Objection.
Discussion? Call for the vote. All in favor, raise your right hand. 4. No? 3. No abstentions. Motion passed 4-3-0.
Who made that motion?
Tori?
Second by who?
Mel?
Good evening. I think that you're without a contract for anybody to go for drug testing. I would suggest to go, and it falls into that procurement policy emergency that Tori had brought up a few minutes ago. And I think that you could go with, I think it's Mercy Medical Nursing, something that HCI uses. Anybody know HCI people? Excuse me? Mercy Business Health, that you could go with them. And I would think that you could make a motion this evening to go ahead and process that. So that way you have some place to go.
Thank you. Well, I know HR needs to be informed of this. Any more discussion? No? Okay, we'll move on to Tori's second added item. Brian Chamberlain? Brian has some questions.
And so I just, in case the council didn't get a chance to see Brian's email, I just printed it out so that you could see his request and that, and so that if anyone didn't have it in front of them, that's the request.
Brian, you had questions?
Yeah, first, good evening, council members. The submission that I made regarding the agenda listed 3 general items to follow. Those were not in order. They were items in general that we were going to bring up tonight. So the first things that I have for you are, thank you for this opportunity today. And during my first term at this table, I was faced with a situation where a local group deemed me their enemy because I did not immediately and blindly adhere to their wishes. Within that experience, I was exposed to their ire in writing as libel, and of course the usual rumor mongering and gossip from their followers in public. When I was young, you see, my great-grandmother, may she rest, taught me that if someone is crying around for something, they must want that in their life. With that wisdom, I brought to that next meeting with these people the very thing that they were pleading for in their baseless accusations toward me and my family. I am here today to once again fulfill that teaching with my actions today. As it has become apparent, my letter submitted to you all this past November is being ignored. For those not aware, I am currently a defendant in a civil matter in our tribal court CV 20-004. Now, convenient knee-jerk reactions around this table are not to discuss any matter within the court system, yet since this matter is a civil action and not criminal, none of you should feel pressured not to discuss this. Moreover, the court action is not what I'm here to talk about, but the prospective outcomes, rather, as they do indeed impose significant precedents upon this body and anyone who sits at it in the future, as well as easy remedies that require almost no effort from anyone at this table. As you are all well aware, the tribal code is silent on how to address the situation when there are more than 3 natural candidates for election each fall. We will once again face this scenario later this year. Knowing this fact, I have something to give to you. And what it is this. I provided to each of you draft copies of a proposed resolution that was intended to be enacted prior to the completion of the 2019 general election. In order to rectify the problem created due to more than 3 vacancies existing, this simple remedy ought to be enacted immediately. In summary, it calls for a simple doubling of the number of candidates on the primary ballot based on the number of seats open within the general election. Since there are 3 natural seats open, there are 6 candidates on the general election ballot. This resolution moves it to if there are 4 or greater, that number is doubled. Ergo, if there are 4 vacancies, there are 8 general election candidates, etc. This draft resolution was created by the tribe's lawyers and remains intact from its original submission. Therefore, dates need to be altered, but that is the extent of what requires changing. It's ready to go now. From my point of view, the multiple vacancy resolution before you is derived from a simple political theory. That is, any question posed to the voter is a basic yes or no. The chance of passage or denial is loosely a 50-50 chance, as this is the most fair of all odds. Under the current argument pending in CV 20-004, 66 to 44 is supposed to be allowable as better, when in truth, this is a tilt unfair to all the candidates and ultimately a confusing disservice to the voter. So therefore, I invite you to alter what's necessary and pass this resolution today.
Yes.
When Big Fire provided a legal opinion on the election tampering issue, there were steps recommended to move forward so that we wouldn't find ourselves in a questionable position of the seats to be filled and the number of candidates that should appear on the ballot. And from being at the table, I thought, okay, who has to own that? Tribal council, the election committee, general council, why didn't we have this conversation before the primary? Because after the primary, when people knew who 6 and 7 were, it made it highly personal. And for, the other candidates, to their credit, they should have had concern with that. But the tribal council, general council, and the election committee should have had the foresight to say, oh, we're filling, X amount of seats, we need to double that. But that didn't happen until after. And in the nature that it happened, caused, concern and question by some membership. And so in that presentation and the opinion on the election tampering issue we had with Secretary Whitewater came the recommendation to amend the code, put this in place so that this same issue didn't arise again. And so the council just hasn't done anything with that. And so we're going to find ourselves in this same circumstance this fall when we're filling perhaps a vacant seat from our vacant councilman. So this is just something that I think Brian is asking that the table take care of before we find ourselves in that same challenge. And so, as I guess as Brian mentioned, this conversation or this issue took place in October. You know, I don't know when it was first presented, but it's a solution, and it's not in favor of you know, anyone. It's just a necessary amendment to our code that would address the circumstances that we never planned to find ourselves in with vacant seats or unfortunate passings of our leadership. And so it just seems like that we need to take care of business, and we should have took care of business before the primary election to this note.
Yes.
All right, well, my part is,
Mr. Chairman, are we going to finish hearing from Brian before we hear from others? I mean, I don't think
No,
Brian,
not.
Okay.
I'd like to address the part that he's talking about.
point of
'Cause I
order,
don't-
Mr.
'Cause
Chairman.
I don't know what the next
Point of
part
order,
that
Mr.
he's
Chairman.
talking about.
Okay. Brian, you still have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. As what Tori said and what was mentioned just a few moments ago, the document that you have in front of you was written by the tribe's lawyers. It was not constructed in any way, shape, or form by me. It was something that was solicited by the table prior to the election that we had this past October. But due to circumstances beyond our control, it was never able to be brought to the table. But what has to be looked at in this is, right now, we are going to be faced with having to fill at least 4 seats this coming October. That is a fact. It's not something I'm making up. It's not my political will. It's not something related to anything like that. We have to fill 4 seats when there are naturally 3. This gives us the mechanism to simply do that. The tribal code is silent currently, and all this does is alter the language of the code to state that if there are more than 3, this is how the election is to be held. It is that simple. The other thing that I want to throw in here while we're considering this, prior to my yielding the floor, which I do not do yet, I want all of you council members that I've served with to remember that when we went into this process last summer, I'm not politically naive, I'm not politically new, I'm not somebody that is outside of how things work around this table from time to time. But one thing I want to assure all of you that sit here today, and the reason why I'm showing you this solution, is because this is what I'm about. Not about who hates one another, who's done something to one another, who has something to grind against someone else, but about solving problems on behalf of all of our people. That's what I'm about. This simple solution in front of you is one way to help us move toward that goal. Because the second and third items, we're also going to be able to have this type of discussion. Now, I understand, and I'm going to give this to you, council members. I'm hitting you cold with this, and that's my phrase on my own, John. So I recognize that, and I understand that. But just as I stand before you today, I did not write this. The tribe's attorneys did. It is a simple mechanism with which to resolve a long-standing problem with our election code. I urge that you pass it as soon as you can. So the second issue. Because our Constitution and our code remain silent on how to consistently fill vacancies once they've become necessary, my proposal further is to enact a similar solution wherein the method to filling the seats gains a codified remedy that allows for minimal disruption to tribal business, follows well-established precedent, while at the same time preserves the essential voice of the people. This proposal is to adopt a resolution that adds to the code a new subsection to Title V, our election code, a codified process to simply select the next highest vote recipient from the last general election to any vacant seat or seats. Again, this not only follows precedent, but removes any hint of favoritism, political conspiracy, refusals to act, or other negative connotations that find their way to this table. Further, the established precedent that I mentioned is as fresh as July 2019, and I can personally attest to that. So therefore, again, I urge you to pass another motion to enact this fair and transparent addition to our code as soon as possible and take all actions necessary required by this lawful and consistent act of the council, honoring the voice of the people from just 4 months ago. I did not submit something in writing because while I did write a resolution for this, I brought it back and decided not to submit it because I didn't want to give anyone the illusion or the, depending on their political will, the ammunition to say, well, this was Brian's doing. Have your attorneys simply draft a resolution to do what was requested. And so the first question that I have is, now 4 months later, why have we not filled this vacant seat? In the last scenario that we had last summer, there was some delay. There was a 2-week delay from the point of the motion to the point where I stood right here and swore my oath to uphold the Constitution. And to this day, I still don't know why there was a 2-week delay. But that's not the point. There are supposed to be 9 members of our council, not 8. The people of our tribe vote for all of us who've sat here. The selections to the vacancy should not be from a mystery pool of people who no one voted for, but instead adhere to the will of the people as they speak every October. When I stood and put my hand up and swore that oath, that's part of what I meant. That regardless of how I felt about who I was sitting at this table with, I was going to do my best to serve our people with everything that I had. And I'm going to remind all of you that I've sat here with, I've done nothing to harm or hurt your own agendas. Instead, I stood in front of this table, Thelma, John, Eric, you don't know this, and gave them specific information on what the council needed to do in relation to one of its biggest problems. So with that, understand, when someone like me sits here, someone that the people voted for, that's what our people should get in return. Somebody with the best intentions of everyone in their hearts and in their actions. But at the same time, we're 4 months into a vacancy. And I ask that question again, why? Why is it so hard to appoint the next highest vote getter? Because again, like I said, and I mean no disrespect, there are people at this table who do not agree with my points of view. But last summer, despite that same situation, that council voted to appoint me. What's different this year? And because I understand that some of you just can't stand the fact of me sitting here, or you don't want me to for whatever reason, I submitted a letter to you, signed on November 4th, I believe, stating I would not accept that appointment, removing myself out of the equation. So any of the 3 could possibly gain this seat and our tribe could continue to try to move forward. You have a former chair, 2 of them if you include what Kenny and Darla have done in the past. Kenny Mallory is a chair, a vice chair, a treasurer, a secretary, and decades worth of experience. Darla LaPointe is a chairwoman, a secretary, and a treasurer. I don't think she was ever vice. You have selections that are stellar as far as a resume is concerned. You don't have to pick me anymore. But I ask you, take that action and put one of them in there. Because this table is supposed to benefit and represent all of us, not just the side that won. Because I'm going to go at that. To me, there are no sides. It's all of us together. I reject out of hand anybody who says our side and theirs. To me, this is the Winnebago tribe. And I'm not here to lecture you on that. It's to let you know that's what's in my heart. I'm standing before you telling you that. Saying it to your face, looking you in the eye, letting you know that's what I'm about. Many people will come down here and they'll immediately get on you. You're not doing this, you're not doing that. Why this, why that? I haven't done that tonight. I've given you 2 workable solutions because that's how I am. So with those 2 things, I'd like some responses. Why is it taking so long? Why aren't Darla, Kenny, or Tony being appointed to that vacant position? And if you really want me to, tell me, and I'll rescind my letter. But I'll be honest, I don't want to do that because I stand by my word. But you have 2 solutions in front of you, and I urge you to pass them both. And the third item is something we'll get into after the discussion.
Thank you for your comments, Brian. I sit here, and I honestly hope that take this division away.
Yep.
And I do. I can't make no promises, but in my heart, I know that. We have tried to appoint twice. Was it twice? And that failed. And it doesn't say anywhere, like you said, appoint the next highest vote getter. It doesn't say that, but this changes would, so. Those are my comments on it. Anybody?
Yes.
CC, we go around tribal council.
I've often wondered that myself, why it's taken so long. I just, last year it was customary that we went with the next vote getter. And I still agree to that myself. But obviously, when you come to this table and you bring personal feelings and things like that, that's the result of it. Myself, I don't like this chairman. I don't like this councilman over here. But when we come to this table and we're going to make decisions for our people and work together and it's going to be good, I have no problem. You have to learn to lay that beside. It's a tough thing to do, but it can be done. I'm doing it. And I like these 2 proposals, that we could add to this resolution would be great. Thank you.
Tori?
I'm in support of amendments to the Tribal Code Title V, Article 2 election. And so, as Brian shared, this isn't the first time that we've received this document and we just haven't moved on it. But it's also, we have to do our due diligence to create solutions and paths forward so we don't have the same questionable things in our upcoming election, and that we would satisfy those questions by changing the language to state the candidates to advance to the general election, and would be twice that of the seats to be filled. And so, you know, and how we found ourselves in this circumstance is by no direction of us, and we could never predict or know when someone's going to get called home. But we need to find a remedy for that, because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And I think that's why every day we're thankful for this day, and that every day when we start a prayer at this table, we're thankful for the opportunity to be on this creation. And so it's the ball is in our court to remedy the problem that we had at the last general election. And that recommendation has been made, it's been drafted on our behalf, and we just haven't done anything with it. So I guess I feel really encouraged. Brian, thank you for putting this back on our, I guess, to our attention. Because how long are we going to wait to pass this, and why would we leave things in such limbo? And so I just want to say that. And the second thing, the request to amend Title V to take the next vote getter, that's been the practice, but it is not in the code, and it makes things difficult, because we've had a conversation amongst the council to talk about this, and I thought it was a good conversation. I think it was the first healthy conversation I participated in, and we didn't come away from there with any agreements, but it was really respectful, and I when we walked out, I felt great. I was like, wow, that's what it feels like to work together, and so we haven't had a follow-up meeting from that. But we have had, motions that have been brought to the table to appoint one gentleman, and that motion didn't pass. And so I think, whatever steps we take moving forward, it has to be transparent, it has to be inclusive, and it has to be healthy. And I just hope that we can have that follow-up discussion. And regarding the vacant seat be filled, I too think that by not filling that vacant seat, we have an unbalanced table. And some of the things that have taken place since our table has been unbalanced, it is of concern, and for voting to continue in that manner is a disservice to the tribal membership, and to not fill those seats should not go. I guess how much longer are we going to not come to an agreement? And if we don't come to an agreement, that's an additional seat that would be filled this election, and then we find ourselves in that same circumstance with language that doesn't allow for the appropriate number of candidates to advance to the general. And so it's that we have solutions before us. We just need to have a willingness to invoke those solutions, so that, one, the election speaks to the circumstances that we have. Two, that request to amend Title V to the next vote getter should be considered to honor the people's voice. And three, that then the urge and encouragement from our tribal member here to take care of that is appropriate. And Brian's here because he's strong enough to stand before his tribal government and make these asks. But I'm hearing those same concerns within the membership. Constantly, when are you guys going to fill that seat? When are you guys going to fill that seat? And I can only share with them, the discussions that we've had and some of the names that I've heard that perhaps have been suggested. And so that's what I have to say about it. And thank you, Brian, for coming down here to make those asks of your council.
Don't we have comments?
No.
No? John?
This kind of points back to what I said before. I really wish we had in-house legal, that we can be following up on these things and following through. And I know this was on the table. I mean, there's some stuff that needs to be changed in it. I have no problem with having double candidates. I'm agreeable to that. And as far as the seat not being able to be filled, it's just it's difficult. There's 8 of us here. It's going to take 6, and I think we proved that we're incapable of that. And I wish there was a mechanism that would just do it. That's what I really wanted. And the other thing that I wanted to point out was when these recommendations came, it was in the middle of the election, and it should have waited till after the election. So I think that was a mistake. We should have did this after the election. That's what really caused a lot of stuff, is when we start changing things in the middle of the election. You know, that's where I kind of came in a bad spot with it. But moving forward, yes, definitely, I believe so.
Thanks, John. Roland?
She had something she wanted to say.
Okay.
That's all. She's been sitting here patiently waiting.
So did Eric.
Eric?
This is, I guess change is good, but just not in one sitting. You know, it was said that this came through the general counsel or whoever, but I would prefer for it to go through from the general counsel to the council instead of coming from you handing it out to us. I don't know, this might have been printed out tonight and just made up. So I'd like to see this come a more legal way through the chairman's office or something like that. So, and as far as the table being unbalanced, we can't control a lot of things about who will accept it or who will even take it up. And it said that the council will appoint that next chair, not to go off the list of people who ran. So, say about that much.
Louis?
I support both recommendations. It gives us a pattern to follow. And it's fair.
Okay. And your next item, Ryan?
Okay, well, before we get to that part of it then, council, is just to respond to some of the comments. First of all, I appreciate everybody taking the time to say something about their points of view on this. I guess I want to start off first by Eric. I did not write this. I'll restate that again. This was written by the tribe's general council in September of last year. And if you ask them tomorrow, you have a copy of it in front of you, they will show you the verbatim copy that they retain. Hold it up to the light, it's going to be exactly the same. Go ahead.
I'd like to say it's still the way it was presented to us tonight. It was just handed out.
I understand.
From.
But I'm reiterating that for clarity, because I need you to understand, as well as everybody else here, that I'm not standing here with a political axe to grind. That's why I took my name out. What happened last summer is precedent to where I should be the first person saying, why am I not seated? But because I wanted something different and I chose something different, I've now given you guys the opportunity to select from 3 very well qualified candidates. And you don't have to deal with me anymore. So with that being said, also, John, the comment that you made, I understand about, yeah, this should have been done in a more timely manner. I agree with that wholeheartedly. And also, CV 20-004 wouldn't exist if this resolution was in place. It wouldn't. So I'll leave it at that. The next thing, I guess, and the last point that I'm going to bring up is a simple question with some comments. Everybody can see this? And it's simply a question. If this was hanging in the building on election day, is this considered campaigning? I'm not done, Mr. Treasurer. I think you can afford me the opportunity to speak.
We already went through this.
Move on.
We had our investigation and it was final.
No,
Did
I'm
you see it?
asking just the simple question. Is
Move on.
this considered campaigning?
Move on.
Any comments? Tori?
I would consider that campaigning, and the code says that if there's any campaigning within 50 feet of the polling site, then that's considered election tampering.
Well, just like Pat Grayhair said, he could go put yours out there when you're doing that, then you'd be the one,
The
right?
thing about this before this
So somebody else
before this
could've put
spirals
that
Yeah.
away,
up there.
Mr. Chair, is this isn't a comment about any one individual. It's not a comment about any of us who have campaigned to sit here. It's a comment that brings to question 5214 and its further need to be amended.
Okay.
Because what has occurred is something that should not occur again. Because whether or not anyone chooses to believe that, exactly the example that was just brought forward, any candidate can be placed in that kind of jeopardy and know nothing about it. But instead of dealing with it, we're trying to hurry up and move on. When the reality is we bear a responsibility to enact laws that benefit all of our people together. And the very last thing that I will have with this, Mr. Chair and members of the council, is when I do things, I try to do things very thoroughly. And I reiterate my point for those of you that had the opportunity to sit here with me, and while I had the opportunity to sit here with some of you, I sincerely enjoyed that. I did. Because I was able to see something that not only have I been generally interested in my life, but it's also the focus of my formalized education, and that's politics. One thing that I want to leave you guys with comes in two parts. I'm sure you've heard the phrase, vive la différence. Have you heard that in politics? Vive la différence. What that comes forward is long live the difference. And it's said in political environments for a very specific purpose, and that is there is supposed to be disagreement. There is supposed to be two or more sides angling for a greater outcome, because unless that happens, you don't reach the higher pinnacle. The courage of our leaders is required not just to stand up, but also to sit down and listen. And with those two things, and in how thorough I am, I'm going to leave you with this, Thelma and Eric. I did ask a legal mind, a lawyer of this. I don't want to push this any further, but if you win, it must be invalidated. And I'm saying this to you, I don't want that. Ask your own attorneys, and they'll tell you the same. So with that, counsel, thank you very much for your time. I hope I've expressed myself clear enough to understand that none of you should ever be afraid to talk to me. None of you should ever be afraid or hesitant to ask me questions, because I remain with my original point that I have always given, is if I am able to help you, I will. But I do not read minds. And I bid you all good night. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Brian. Cece, good.
On number one, when we talked about the legal counsel and it was voiced at that time, that legal counsel did not do their due diligence in researching, filling that fourth seat. And so what they did is they went back as far as 2015 and looking at just the history from 2015, because there were at one time 6 vacant seats. And so at that time, that's what they did, is they doubled the number. So that's what Brian's referring to, that's what legal counsel looked at. But prior to that, there was ways that the tribal council filled that seat. And that was Vern Smith and Darrell LaPointe. And they didn't add anybody on that ballot. And that's what the general counsel did not look at. Whoever they were trying to please, they did it in a hurry and went back to 2015, and that was it. If they were gonna do something for us, they should have did a thorough legal research, thorough research of how the Winnebago Tribal Council filled that position. And they did not do that. And the way that the council did it is they took from those six people that were on the ballot, and that's what they did. They didn't double the number. And if you look at the Constitution, I don't have that in front of me, but I believe it says 6 on the primary to the general. So those are issues that you have to really, really look at. And also with that one, when it says appoint someone, the next highest vote getter, you still have to deal with the 2/3 that says that in the Constitution. Above anything else, the Constitution is number 1. So those are the legal questions that you have to look at. And I am saying that these resolutions that are in front of you, these solutions that are in front of you, are not well thought out. And that you really do need to look at, how the Constitution plays in this. Because it does say 6, and it does say 2/3. How are you gonna remedy that? Because no matter what, if you do adopt the resolution that says the next highest vote getter, that person still has to get 6 votes or 7 votes, whatever it's gonna be from 9 membership. And I remember after Vern had passed away, that position stayed open for the remainder of his term. And that was, well, excuse me?
I disagree with that
She's
because I
got
was
the
put into
table.
Vern's position after
Point of
he
order.
passed away. I was put in that position.
Point of order.
So, perhaps I'm wrong, but I do remember it being open for a length of time. So these are questions that you have. I don't think that you should be, like you said, you need to look at these and you need to be prepared. And also, time and time again, I've suggested to, several secretaries and council members to make sure you have your things in place so that way you're not blindsided. And so you need to have those things in place, but, so you still have to, deal with those types of things, and I think you need to look at the Constitution before you adopt these, if you're thinking about adopting these resolutions. And it is, I agree with Brian, he said, there are, you need to have differences. And that's the part of, whoever you're gonna appoint, of where are their viewpoints? And that's what we have today, is where are those viewpoints at? Because we certainly do have, you can say that we have a split in this tribe, and we do. We're all aware of it. Mal votes one way, strictly one way. He's never gonna go away from that. That's just an example. No matter if the other side has some common sense, he's never gonna go along with it. So, thank you for listening to me and giving me your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cece.
Daphne?
I just want to, I want to read you an article from Winnebago Indian News dated March 6, 1989, and this is when every tribal council member was putting in an article once a month, and they would have it listed whose month it was. In fact, this one has Cece's name on it from September 30th. That was going to be her day to submit hers for the win. But I want to share this with you because it's written by one of the greatest statesmen this tribe has ever known. He was respected all across the United States because he looked out for everybody. So here this article is: politics is a necessary evil of all organized structured societies of men. Governments of all kinds are political systems. Excuse me, I have to put my readers on. To most of us, politics is a dirty word, and we all try to avoid the label of politician because of the negative image that word creates of a person. Most people think that politics is a process. Corruption and incompetence, most people think that all politicians are naturally bankrupt. The truth of the matter is that politics is both an art and a science. When practiced at its highest level, when we let our human weaknesses such as ego tripping, seeking revenge, and personal gratification get into our political systems, is when politics is reduced to its lowest level. If we ever hope to attain a better life for ourselves as individuals and as Indian nations, we must serve to practice politics at its highest level. That means we must learn the art of compromise to secure to ourselves internal tribal serenity. We must also learn the science of political processes to achieve a maximum impact with all of the external political powers with which we must interact on a daily basis as a sovereign Indian government. We must learn to leave our personalities out of our political decisions. We must learn to deal with society with lessons and to make our political discussions based on facts rather than emotions. Our tribal government enjoys a natural regulation. It's not helping. I grabbed the wrong glasses. Respective and equitable. Every natural leader, Indian and non-Indian, who works with our tribe in any capacity generally speaks highly of our tribal government. Local dissident views of our tribal government are due to misinformation and disinformation, so we must strive for better communication with our tribal community to better educate ourselves as to what is really happening and to generate greater cooperation in developing and establishing goals and objectives for ourselves as a people. Because in the end, all politics are human effort to achieve serenity and security within our social order. So we've been dealing with the same situation for how many years now? Because this statesman, I feel in my heart, was crying out to our people that there shouldn't be a division. And I want to tell you that that statesman was Reuben Snake Jr. And maybe some of you respect him and maybe some of you don't. That's your prerogative. But his mind was in the right place. And his heart was in the right place. You know, when he talked about that axe grinding, that's what I see here. Because when Rollin doesn't like something, he turns in his chair or he flips his papers like you're disturbing him. There is no point of order there. I have a right to my opinion. Well, I'm directing it at you because you do that all the time. You know, just like when Brian was up
Okay.
here, I seen you slam your paper on the table. That's disrespectful. All I'm saying is that when there is no point of order. I'm not being disrespectful. I'm saying my opinion. I'm stating my opinion, and I'm entitled to that because I vote here. See, now you're mumbling. You talk about point of order, and then you do things like that. Grow up. Be the statesman you're supposed to be for our tribe. Your emotions show here every time, and I think that's terrible.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Roland,
when she's done speaking.
are you done?
No, I'm not done. Because you guys are doing exactly what he's talking about in this article. And we're not supposed to have a division. This is the table that's supposed to pull the community together. That's all the point I want to make. And I want to point out the disrespect because, you know, I'm supposed to respect you, but you don't have to do that for me in return. I'm an elder whether you like it or not. And I've never done anything to you for you to disrespect me like that. That's what bothers me, that kind of behavior. And this is supposed to be the highest level of people in our tribe. That hurts, you know that? It hurts when you get up here and you guys act like that, and I see you guys acting like that to each other. Look at Louis sitting here. I see Rowland do that to him every time he talks. And it upsets me because he's an elder. And he has a wealth of knowledge, and you guys don't try to take advantage of it.
Daphne, can you be fair? Because not all of us, when you say you guys, that's not fair. And then can you stop from the personal attacks?
I'm not
Stick
trying
the
to
issue.
attack him
Yeah.
personally.
If we stick to the issues, I mean, you was doing good, but the personal attacks is where it goes bad. And it kind of hurts me when you say you guys, because I have great respect for Louis and I have great respect for everyone. It's going to take all of us. We all got strengths. And we gotta
Okay,
use
you
them
don't want
together.
me to mention one person's name, but you don't want me to say you guys. Which way do you want it? I respect you, John, because you speak your mind, and I see you're true to your heart. You know, I can say what my opinion is, but maybe you guys just want me to go in the community and start rallying people who get hurt by some of the actions that are taken here. That might be the solution you guys want. I don't know.
Okay, thank you, Daphne.
Thank you, Daphne.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Roland, comment?
I want to say thank you to Daphne for your article and reminding us of how we should be conducting ourselves as far as being servants of the people. I appreciate that reminder.
Yes.
We were talking about the elections and replacing and seating another tribal council member. And we haven't always followed that rule about seating that next highest vote getter. Because in 2015, when I was the highest with that special election, when I was the next highest vote getter, I was skipped over. So that is some precedent set there. But I don't want to argue about that right now. What I want to do is bring up some of those underlying issues that are pitting one person against another, dividing our tribe. And I'm going to be the one that says it. It's Ho Chunk Inc. And I understand why it was established, because in 1990 and 91, I brought to our directors meeting the fact of getting a 501c3, because tribal governments were 501c4. And Donna Vandal then took that information that I freely shared and established. What about being disrespectful? Because it's true. I've been out there. I've been out in the world and have established a reputation. And I come back here and I have never been so disrespected by my own. Now, I don't know if it's because I have a smaller family. I don't know if it's because my other family members previously brought up a lot of issues and wrongs that they saw in the community. I don't know, because I was too busy at that time working at Head Start for our children. And I was working with Daphne. I promoted her. I asked her to sit on the school board, as well as Terry Medina and Randy Decor. They were my policy council members. And I asked them to please, so we could try to affect change in the language and culture. Anyway, that's another story. What I wanted to get to was the 501c3 efforts by HCI, I think, have backfired. It's the dog. Right now, it's the tail wagging the dog, which is pretty evident that I think other people in our community are also understanding. There's just the few that are benefiting from that. And please look at it objectively, and you will know that that's true. When I first sat on the Land Management Corporation, and I suggested, and Tori was there, and I mentioned to, we were going to just hire somebody without even an interview, and I said, well, can we at least have an interview? So we did, and then I questioned the profit-sharing piece. I was laughed at to my face, because I said, you know what, we should want to just work for our people without having all of these extra funds. And I was laughed at. When I brought during those meetings, I brought up the question about conflict of interest. Again, I was laughed at. Winnebago doesn't know conflict of interest. Well, I was thinking that maybe it's time that we should know that. And nepotism also.
Yes, finally. Sorry, that's what they do.
Okay, I
Well,
think that's so.
So,
I'm gonna,
so,
Marion, I'm gonna.
well,
Get back to our
but
agenda.
but we need to try to get our people together.
Yeah, we do.
And look at things objectively. That's why there's that 4 and 5 vote. That's why Thelma and Dusty got on. Because we don't feel like, and what about our people that live off reservation? Are there only 170 or 80 that are going to benefit from this? And only when there's profit sharing should there be those dividends paid to individuals. I think we're in a debt situation, not a profit. And normally, when companies do not succeed, that board of directors is looked at because it's their responsibility. That's all I have to say
Okay,
at
good,
this
thank you.
time.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
We're going to move on to the agenda.
I have a comment, Mr.
no,
Chairman.
We're going to move on to the agenda. Item 3, added items. 12 clans consultation? Consultant? Huh?
Wrestling thing is next.
Wrestling? Okay. Item labeled wrong. One of our children made it to the state wrestling tournament, and he is scheduled to wrestle Thursday morning, Thursday and Friday, and I believe in the past there was admin granted for those who wish to attend. Does that need a motion or just kind of a FYI to everybody? What was done in the past?
Mr. Chairman, the one incident that I recall was when admin leave was granted to the whole tribe for a state basketball tournament, and that was the last time that I recall something like that being done, but it wasn't for all those interested, because in what way can we ensure that they actually went to the wrestling meet?
Just save your ticket stub. You got to pay to get in. There was something written like that. I know it's crazy, but yeah, I understand that.
But I guess to celebrate I don't want to. I mean, I just remember when we had it for the state basketball tournament, and that's my only comment. That, but I don't. That was just the last time I saw. But it was for the whole tribe. It wasn't with a ticket stub. It was just for the whole tribe.
Karen?
Council, I think it was just for those, more or less like the parents. Last year for the wrestling, there was 2 individuals that went down, and then those who are interested. So we didn't call off work that day or anything like that. It was just those who would wish to go, they were granted admin leave. And then you had to get prior supervisor approval in order to do that, and then bring a ticket stub back to prove that you were down there. That was, so it wouldn't be tribal wide, it would just be for those who would want to go.
And that decision can be made solely done by the CEO. Okay, we'll move on. Item number 5 is Buffalo Council has a. Sorry about that. I should have. I know you wanted to stay.
This is to support the intertribal bison application by the tribe. And so the goal of this project is to acquire the necessary equipment to enhance the management of the Winnebago tribe's buffalo herd and pasture land through lease, through lease agreements, and to promote spiritual and cultural belief practices and significance of the buffalo, and to offer healthy food choices for tribal members and community programs. And so we're requesting $72,310 to support this effort.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for resolution 1927, the project, 97, excuse me, 1997, project title FY 2019 Herd Development Grant.
Second.
Motion by Tori, seconded by Louis. Is there any objections to the motion? Discussion? Roland? Speaking to the mic.
Being that Councilman Snowball is the head of this program, I feel that he should recuse himself from this vote.
What's that? 2097?
Yeah. Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Thank you, Roland, for raising that point, but in my opinion, this table has allowed John to maintain his role as the director of the Wildlife and Parks Program. And in his role as the director, it's his obligation to look for opportunity to develop our herd. And so this grant is going after money to promote the mission of our Wildlife and Parks and Buffalo herd. And so I don't think it's necessary for John to recuse himself. This isn't for his benefit. This is for the benefit of the Winnebago tribe and our herd that we are seeking to enhance and improve.
Okay, thank you. Is there any objections to the motion? No objections? No objections. Motion passed 7-0-0. Last item on the agenda is 12 Clans Consultant.
Okay, on that one I had stated, that I wanted that Dale Knutson, and then Tori said, you know, we should have that, RFP to get the 3 bids. So I wanted to make a motion to strike Dale Knutson and put in RFP and a scope of work for a consultant to get a professional opinion to support an existing team so that we may enhance services.
That's your motion.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Discussion.
Who's paying for this?
The tribe, if that's the motion. About it. Discussion.
We need to discuss this. Can't just say that.
Yeah?
I too have concerns on who's paying for this, this consultant. And my second concern is that this should be referred to the 12 Clans, or excuse me, the Winnebago Comprehensive Healthcare System Board of Directors, and that was the body by the accepted formation documents and the bylaws that body is the governing body of the WCHS and all things that are related to that. And this table has, through the separation of authority and powers, have bestowed that upon the WCHS Board of Directors. And I understand Thelma's concern. I want to continue to have this discussion on what exactly she's looking for. And we had a presentation from some of our concerned membership, and that continues to be a sore subject amongst the facility, and that video that remains on YouTube was just not something that should remain in cyberspace and accessible, because not only does that is that not a fair assessment of our progress, it also was not an equitable process on how we deal with these concerns. And so the council has had a meeting with the executive management team, I think 2 Fridays ago. And so it's meetings like that we have the opportunity to discuss these things and to, really all come up with the best solution and also capture, some of the concerns that Thelma has. And, I had said at that time that we have individuals working against the Winnebago tribe's success and path to recertification. And that's really concerning to me, because it's not about individuals, it's not about what anyone likes or doesn't like. It's about following through with the intentions that this table made and what the seeds that we planted and the prayers that were made over there to have 12 Clans Unity Hospital and everything that it's going to encompass for the people moving forward. And so I'm just concerned that things like this continue to come to the table absent the board of directors and the foundation that the council set by having that being the governing body of the WCHS and all things that are related to that. Thank you.
Roland.
To answer Councilman Frenchman's question on who's going to be paying for this, and then again to address what Councilwoman Ketchian has brought forth in regards to this consultation, I feel that One, this table has to acknowledge the concerns of the tribal membership in regards to the health care that's being provided. So we have to acknowledge what was said. Two, that we should be working with that board and find solutions to this issue so that we can have better services, better coverage, and that our membership don't have to worry about being misdiagnosed in any way, shape, or form, or being mistreated. And three, being that this is a health board issue, and we only want to enhance the services and support and work with that the funding would come from over there.
Ann?
So I appreciate your willingness to hear me out. I guess what I want to raise to sort of echo some of what Councilwoman Kitchian has stated, that, I guess what I want to emphasize is, I came down here only on this issue, and but through the course of the evening, hearing all of these comments and some of the things that are going on, it's getting back to that same thing. It's about a fairness and an opportunity to be heard, because we were notified of these complaints at a meeting in, I think, early December at our strategic planning meeting. We weren't given the actual complaints. We, the board, were not given, nor any of the management at the hospital given these complaints. And then the motion was made from this table to do this investigation, I think was the word that was in the motion. And then we had a joint meeting with council. And to someone's earlier point, I don't know if it was Councilwoman Kitchian or Vice Chairman Snowball, but not everybody was included in that meeting. Mr. Chairman, you called the meeting, not everybody was included. We were able to get some of the other council members that weren't invited to that meeting up there. But this motion was made in between that. We never got an opportunity to even respond, to have that. And so this is proceeding without what we've all been saying we want to do, which is communicate, work together, find resolution. I think we all want that, but that's not what's happening in practice, because this action was taken unilaterally without even the council, or without even the board being present, right? Based on individual, comments, which I agree, we have to be responsive to that. But there's a way for that. There's a way for us to work that out and do that. So if you hear those concerns, they're shared. You can be assured that the process is followed. But that didn't happen here. Just all of a sudden there's an investigation without any opportunity for us to respond. And then in the meantime, since that happened, we've had outside people come in and look at the hospital. And you were here and we had that report. And it's going extremely well, right? And so there's an inconsistency between a willingness to do that and then those actions. And that seems to me to be a common theme. So in that sense, I guess it's not unique to 12 clans. But that is what's happening here. And I guess I just have I guess my request is we should let that process of us figuring out how we're gonna work, because we've been very forthcoming. We've had at least 3 meetings together, right? The most recent, you weren't able to be here, Mr. Chairman. I think you were ill, but we had a good conversation, and Vice Chairman called the council, to meet together to discuss that. Why don't we give that an opportunity to handle it internally before we're out asking, paying money to go have somebody come in and, we're making that progress, And so I guess that's my request, is there's no need to pursue that right now, right? We haven't given what we're trying to build a fair chance. And then not knowing whether I'm gonna get an opportunity to speak again, or I'm gonna say a couple other things, okay? The other one is, I would just like those of you who are unwilling to hold Tri-State accountable for that egregious action would give the same level of an honest mistake to 12 clans if we were to do something like that. Because if we were to violate HIPAA and share private, sensitive, confidential information about any of our tribal members outside, I don't think you would give your own institution the same level of respect you're giving a non-institution who has the same duty of care to you. I just ask for that, one.
Point of order.
Okay. Just kind of what John was saying earlier, just don't, it's not across the board, okay?
Uh,
Yeah, you know, we're not all on the same page and,
Yeah, I just said for those of you who
Okay.
are unwilling to overlook that, please
Roland.
keep that in mind.
Mr. Chair, I want to say thank you, Ann. I agree with you on the discussions that took place earlier over there at HCI in regards to the matters at hand. And I feel that giving you guys your time like that to address it is fair, and it should happen. And then with that being done, then we go and address it. But I'm not going to back away from the fact that we had tribal members come in here because they felt that they weren't their issues weren't being addressed properly. And so that really seems to be the issue. And so let us find the solution to that particular issue so that everybody concerned in the welfare of this, our membership, so that we can work together to fix this. And if we do have to go with a consultant to help us do that, then let us do that. In my mind, that's going to be money well spent, because it will only help us. And that's all I got to say, Mr. Chair, in regards to this hospital issue. Let's give them their what they're asking for, and then let's readdress this.
okay, I agree. There was a good report, and my thought, you know, myself is, you know, maybe we need those people there daily. You know, I say maybe we need more heels on the ground down there from upstairs, observing and watching, make sure quality work is getting done. Because, you know, you could think, oh, well, they were just on their toes because they were doing that mock survey.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Treasurer, I just want to reinforce, and I know you're getting concerns. Each one of you are hearing. We want to establish a process so that we're making sure they're getting responded to. I don't have my management team here with me, or my colleagues, my other board members, other than those who serve on the council. But I think you can agree with me that we've expressed at the table more than once that we want to make sure that we are responding. We want to hear those things. We don't want to close our eyes to them. We want to hear them. But there's a process for that. And how, if they're coming here, they get to the hospital, and how that process is followed, and then how and what we can report to you, right? Because there's confidential information we can. But there's got to be a way we can figure out so that you have the information you need to be responsive to those tribal members who are feeling like they aren't served well. But that can be worked out. That's my point. And that's all I'm asking for, is we don't have that figured out yet. I get that. We know that. But we want to do it, and we want to do it together. That's all we're asking for.
I agree, because my thought again, mine only, is that we need to, as a board member and as council member, I'm on a 12 clans board, that we need to make a policy to make sure that the complainants are getting heard at the board level. Then the council sees there's a response, and we need to work that out. That's just but we need to figure that out, something like that. Eric.
I'd like to say thank you for coming down here this evening. I guess my concern on this topic, it's the health and welfare of the membership, and being able to take care of our membership. This hospital's been here for decades, and this hospital's been under the tribal control of almost 2 years now, and so there's nothing that's just popping up. We've always had people going to our hospital. These problems are always here. It's just how it's dealt with. And since it's been under our control, we've had a few lives lost in that building. we have people being misdiagnosed, treated badly, racially, whatever it might have been. Doctors fighting in front of the people. And we still have people in our community that are dealing with a lot of the shortcomings of this hospital. And we have a lot of our community tribal members pushing through pain right now as we speak within our community because we can't get the medication, because we can't get them the treatment. The list is backed up. So this is nothing new to us. It's not just coming overnight. And so what I'd really hate to see is another one of our memberships' lives be lost in this building from this point of thinking that this is now just something that's coming up now when they shouldn't even get to that point. They should be sent out to somewhere else, to a specialist, as soon as possible. Up our cachet of medicines at our pharmacy so we can get the medications that we need for cancer or whatever else it might be that's needed. And so from what's happened so far under the people that work there, the people on the board, this has been on some of the people's watch that are on these boards and work there now. So I just don't know how far we're gonna have to go. Do we have to go to another life that's lost? Hopefully we can prevent that. And I've been trying to give this a chance since I came on the council. And I'm willing to see that this is given another chance. But let this be the last if I have a say in anything. Because I really hate to see our membership go through pain that's unneeded to, and to suffer without being sent to a specialist. And there's a lot of things that concern me, a lot of things that, but with this consultant coming in, I would like to double check, have a consultant come in. If you're doing everything right, there's nothing to worry about.
It's not about worrying about it. It's about, are we going to just like have a constant, consultant in because there's this lack of trust and an unwillingness to work together? Or are we going to establish that? Because it took decades to get into the situation that hospital is in, right? And I can't assure you, it's a human endeavor, right? And humans make mistakes. Y'all said that, earlier. But here's the thing. Our best chance at getting it right and getting people to understand our community, our best chance at getting traditional practices into our healing, our best chance at changing the formulary, our best chance at making sure people who understand the right way to behave in the ER and that we have control over whether they work there or not is if we have control of it, not if somebody else does. And that's what we're endeavoring to do. But you don't undo the decades of that in 18 months, right? And we didn't even know what all the problems were. We just knew what we all shared with each other and what those GAO reports said and what our individual family members went through. But once we got in there, right, on July 1, it all revealed. I mean, we didn't even know that before we walked in there. So 18 months sounds like a long time, but when you're trying to undo that, that is not a very long amount of time. I hear, but we can't wait any longer because no life can be lost to that. I agree with you 100% on that. All I'm saying to you is that under the leadership you have, with you all controlling that organization, we have an opportunity to fix those things. If we go down this path of second guessing, it undoes all of that. In fact, then that institution becomes a political football, just like, right? Now all the problems our tribe has is Ho-Chunk Inc., We can't lay the problems of that at any one institution. We're participants in that. I'm saying let's be participants in the solution to that.
I'd just like to say, you're right in a lot of what you say, but what you're not right in is when those mistakes are human lives of our membership.
It's not okay. That's not my point.
Ann, are you done?
I
Are you
am.
giving?
I am, yeah.
Give him the floor. Tori?
Thank you, everyone, for your comments. And Eric, I just want to tell you that I have those same exact concerns as you do on the loss of life. And the whole reason the Winnebago tribe even started down this path was because the Centers for Medicaid Services identified through their credentialing process and review process that this hospital had been providing care that lacked quality to the impact that it put lives in immediate jeopardy. And so that's the language from that report. And in that review, they found that there were 5 lives that had been lost unnecessarily at the hands of the Indian Health Service. And so it was through those concerns that the Winnebago tribe went to Washington, D.C. and started trying to find support amongst our congressional folks, find support from some of our national Indian advocacy agents, such as the National Indian Health Board. And so the tribe for 2 years worked alongside the Indian Health Service as a partner in a government-to-government fashion to correct those actions. And after 2 years of spinning their wheels, the IHS was not able to recertify that hospital. And so by not recertifying that hospital, we lacked third-party revenue that is a direct has a direct impact on patient care programs and functions that happen at the facility. And so we went to Congress and we asked for money for a special accreditation emergency fund that would help us bridge that gap, because under other circumstances, hospitals have that third-party revenue. And as you may know, that the IHS as a whole agency is only funded at 40%. And going back to that HHS budget consultation, that's why we go there every year to say, hey, we need more money. We need you to fund IHS at a fully unmet need. And this is the number that we think you should fund it at. I think it's like almost, I think like $6, $7, $9 billion is what the tribes say we need. But we get 40%, and then Congress puts spending bills forward, and then they go through the chopping block. And so then we end up with just a little bit. And so everything that you're saying and the concern that you have, I share that concern. And so after the agency couldn't do it for 2 years and more people were harmed, like you mentioned, the tribe said enough. 327 tribes or more engage in self-governance and run their healthcare systems. And there are models out there and performances that can speak to the success of third-party revenue collections and the ability of a tribe to seek those reimbursements much better than the federal government. Like, what do they care if they get reimbursed by their sister agency? They're doing a bad job anyway. But some of these success stories that exist and that I've, I guess, kind of been acquainted with or got to visit, it might have took them 20 years to get as sharp as they are. And so we are in the infant stages of self-governance, and it's just really, our health isn't a political football, and it just cannot remain in these type of conversations. And I just ask that before we take premature actions like hiring a consultant, why aren't we utilizing the process that we have, before us, and developing the ones kind of like that Chairman Brown mentioned? And to call in someone else to do that on our behalf just doesn't make sense when we haven't even communicated with the board of directors on some of these things and have had time to respond to some of the concerns that have been raised not only by the membership but by this table. And so I'm just asking for your support. I'm asking for people to stop sabotaging the progress of our facility, and that we be given a fair chance to provide quality patient care. And the first step in providing that quality patient care is as a tribal health facility, obtaining CMS certification. So we're not reapplying because we never lost it. The Indian Health Service lost it. It's the Winnebago tribe's first attempt at doing that. And we set an aggressive timeline of 24 months. And so we haven't even exceeded those 24 months. And so I think some of these concerns are valid. And I think some of the things that we heard on solutions and ways to continue these conversations are what needs to happen. But we cannot destabilize and bring in consultants and undermine the work that has been done and do it in a way that's so like there's a level of mistrust and I just think that there's so much more that can be said, and this is why we need more meetings with the executive management team, with the board of directors, and we all have to participate in this discussion. And to this point, we had a really good meeting the last time we came together, and there was more to talk about, but unfortunately, we only had the time in that day. And I think we need greater communication, follow-up, and to stop doing this under the table action, and for Thelma to reach out to this person at the area office, Ms. Dale Knutson, to her credit, why would she pull herself into this? Why would she insert herself in this? The agency is not going to get in between a tribal government dispute, and that's what we're asking. And if it's not Dale Knutson, it's going to be some other company, and that's just not appropriate at this step in our process. And with a successful mock survey, it's not a fair assessment of what's happening over there. And when we have disgruntled employees, when we have disgruntled patients, there's a process, and it's the patient advocate. And unfortunately, the two people we heard from that evening, I believe they have genuine concerns, but neither of them went through the patient advocate. And going back to HIPAA, it's not fair to those patients, it's not fair to the executive management team or the council to even have to be responsive to some of those concerns and talk about those things on YouTube in open forum when this is their health record we're talking about. This is their individual experience. And although they were very vocal and willing to share that with us, I couldn't comment on that. And that would be inappropriate as a board member. And so I think there's a real productive way that we take these next steps. And some of the things that Ann shared this evening is true. We haven't even had the opportunity. There's been some email traffic going back and forth, and I think there's a willingness to be responsive. It's just give the board, give the executive management team that fair opportunity. Thank you.
Thanks. Got a comment? Eric?
I would like to say there's no sabotage or distrust. It's the membership that we're worried about. And no matter what we do or however we do anything around this table or in DC or whatever with any of the boards, the membership health is priority. That's who's coming to us. And we can't stop people from getting sick or hurting themselves or things of nature that comes with age. We can't stop that. But when those things come and those people come to us with our shortcomings that we can fix, I think we need to look into that. And like I said to Ann earlier, if everything's good, then they have nothing to worry about. The only thing that this consultant would do would only help us smooth things over for our people. They might see something that we don't see and smooth it over. And no, there was no threat in there.
John?
I was
John?
next after
Oh.
her, remember?
Thelma?
Okay, I just want everyone to know that I am here for our tribal membership. The people have faith and trust in me that I'm gonna do something about it for them. Their life, their health, regardless of who's on the other side. A long time ago when they had this old hospital over here, way before, it was a good hospital, it was IHS. They delivered babies, they did a lot of good things there, there was a lot of good doctors. It doesn't matter if it's IHS or tribe, we need quality workers there, doctors, nurses, staff. And if your family went in there, your kaka, your choka, you'd want them to treat them with respect. I would. I want nobody disrespecting my kaka or my choka. So you got to think about that. When our people go in there, they need to be treated that way. And that's how I want see our people treated over there. So why I did this and made this motion is for the people, because I brought these complaints to the board. They all had it. They had plenty of time to come back. What did they do about it? So far, I haven't seen nothing. The table has seen nothing from the reports that I left them. They made no response, and she's saying, well, we need time. How much more time? There's been more firings, there's more terminations, more deaths over there from that time to now. So with this is what I want to find out. What is wrong? And then we'll work on it together. Get this solved so that we can have quality people over there working for, taking care of our loved ones. That's what I want. It's not to try to make anybody look bad or anything like that. We want good health care for our people. And I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep going and be there for my people. When they come to me, I want to help them.
John?
Thank you, Chairman. What I'm hearing is everybody wants the same thing. It's about how do we get there? And I really want to encourage this board, Winnebago Comprehensive, and I wish that would come there. That action there. But I do think it would be beneficial if we had that outside opinion, and but I would like it to request that from the board. And just to be clear, when this motion was first made, I didn't support it and I didn't vote for it because I didn't know this woman, and it was kind of a lot of questions that I didn't know. But moving forward, I would ask that our two council members that sit on that board do a little more legwork with these council members and eliminate this stuff. Just today, me and Rollin had a emergency HCI board meeting just about this stuff. Squashing all this stuff before it festers. And we came up with some good ideas. Our board sat together and we came up with some good ideas and how we're going to move forward. Because we separated these things from politics, and that's kind of why they're successful. But we're growing, and we're actually paving the way in Indian country that way. So we're still learning, and we're just humans. So me and Rollins taking that on. And with this 12 clans, everybody wants it to work. It's hard for me to believe that anybody around this table or anybody over at the hospital is in some kind of wants it to be bad. I don't think that. And so I would ask that of Tori and Coley, to take more of a role in between the board and the council. That's what I'm taking on, and Rollin too. And so that's what we're looking at. We need to work together, and we all want the same thing. So we need to find ways to get there. Thank you.
Thanks. Real quick. Yeah, I know. She's next. Barb, next. You want to come sit down, Barb?
Okay.
And that's going to be it. Cece?
All right. Thank you for allowing me to get up for a few minutes. And concerning the HIPAA situation, that there's rules that you learn about HIPAA when you work for the hospital. And one of the things is the number of people that have been affected by HIPAA. And if it goes over a certain amount of people, then it has to be published in some type of newspaper, reported to the government. And those are things that happen with HIPAA. And so it depends on the number of people that are affected by it. All right. The second thing is, one thing that happened under IHS is when something like a death, and there was a situation where it was negligent, gross negligent, in someone's death, and someone witnessed it, they had the obligation, because they're professionals, to report that to someone. And that someone was CMS. And under 12 clan, and they came up here, and they investigated. And I gave that report to some of you that didn't have it. And if you read it, it tells you what happened. And those are public documents that anybody can ask for from CMS. And those in there tell you steps that need to be taken to remedy the situation. And Tori's right. They couldn't do it. They brought in all these people from all over the place, Commission Corps, people from Aberdeen, and they couldn't fix it. But the Winnebago tribe, us, and I was all for it. We bought into it. But under the same failed IHS system, if they couldn't fix it, then how are we going to fix it? Under the same big monster organization that's so negligent in treating our people. So I want it to work, but we don't have a mechanism to go, an organization like that way, to go to CMS to do that. And we've had negligent deaths over there, and they have been reported. And the buck stops with Dr. Noisy-Hawk and the CEO, Danelle Smith. That's where it ended. And what Thelma found out at the table was Tori was not aware of those complaints, those negligent deaths that happen over there. But now she is, and now that this board has not reported to the tribal council on anything. And the latest incident is very important to all of us. The hospital, Dr. Noisy-Hawk, and their credentialing.
Point of order,
people-
Mr. Chairman, this is you cannot talk about a
This
personnel
is,
issue.
yes, I can.
And this is
I'm-
inappropriate. And
Excuse me,
this is not
excuse me,
point of
I have
order.
the floor. These are public
You're
documents.
talking about a current employee of this facility.
These are public documents, Chairman. So if you would please put her in line so I can talk about this.
Let's not talk about anybody personally, okay? They're staying
All
in
right. We have a doctor over there. Back in 92, I believe.
Mr. Chairman, this is a live stream meeting. I ask that this be stopped immediately. You have a personnel and
No.
someone's name and
No.
reputation at
These are
stake
public
here,
documents.
and this is
You can
very
find them
inappropriate.
on-
And that this person would be talking about on a live stream about a current employee of WCHS. And this stream needs to stop immediately. And Mr. Chairman,
Point of order. You always say that and you shut other people up but, you know. Okay, let me finish with this. This doctor that we have over here. All right, you got it then. So he touched a woman.
Cece,
What?
let's stop right there.
No.
Yes,
I'm going to. He touched a woman's breast.
Cece. Got
And
it.
he touched